Hello and welcome back. Let me open my PPT so that we can continue. We are doing the lecture of worldview studies, and last time we have covered the strong and weak points of naturalism. So let me summarize what we have covered last time. First of all, the first point of strong aspects of naturalism is that they are fully aware of the importance of science and they provide a framework for most scientific research. Secondly, this worldview seems very honest and objective. Third, it seems quite consistent. But there are some weak points as well. First of all, it is unable to give a refreshing answer to the question of value. Secondly, if humans are just complex machines and personalities are just interactions of chemical and physical properties, there's no space for free will for human beings. There's no space for spiritual and psychological aspects here. So I mentioned the critical error called naturalistic fallacy regarding what is just right, but that's not the case. The third point is that it is very optimistic about human reason and science. Fourthly, there are no fundamental differences between humans and other creatures. And I also mentioned the Marxism and other worldviews in relation to this naturalistic worldview. Now, we are moving to the last part of this worldview. What can we say about the weak points? What can we offer some alternatives to the weak points of naturalism? So let me start. First point, naturalism does not recognize the supernatural or spiritual aspects. Therefore, it cannot explain the spiritual value. However, it is undeniable. It is true that there are many mental phenomena in our lives that transcend matter. And there are many cases where we give up material values for a more noble value. Therefore, it is questionable how we can evaluate human value if humans are composed of only physical and chemical elements. And there are two words that are the opposite of naturalism, New Age and biblical worldview. I would say there are two worldviews because New Age emphasized the spiritual aspect and the biblical worldview as well. In other words, New Age is called non-naturalism because it absolutizes the spiritual side of everything within our world. It sees all as spiritual and one. We will talk about this worldview later in detail. And according to this worldview, Earth is one living entity. It is called the Gaia hypothesis. Another alternative, the biblical perspective, sees man as the image of God as we have seen before. This worldview acknowledges all the aspects of man's free will, body, mind, and spirit in good balance. And we know that human beings are better than all the other creatures, and they should rule and develop the world on behalf of the Creator. It is so-called a cultural mandate. So in that sense, human beings are very unique and special. And this worldview also emphasizes the clear values and dignity of man, saying that one's soul is more precious than the rest of the world. To save one's soul is more important than the whole cosmos, said the Bible. And if humans are only a component of a society, then they can be easily replaced by another one without any problem or without any delay if they are sick or disordered or died. Realistically, however, from a parent's point of view, a loving child can never be replaced by another human being, even if he is disordered or she is ill. Therefore, the biblical worldview can be a good alternative in the sense that this personal love has sublime values that cannot be explained by matter. So let me move on to the second point. If naturalists think that humans are just complicated machines, they cannot give recognition to human free will as we have seen before. Then we can no longer hold humans accountable for ethical and legal responsibility, which in turn leads to ethical relativism. As a result, the social order will collapse and fall into chaos. So, to prevent this, human free will and responsibility must be recognized. One German philosopher, Immanuel Kant, argued that the existence of God is a required precondition for ensuring human morality. It means that he acknowledged that humans are responsible beings with free will and therefore need a referee or a judge to make ethical life possible. Kant was an Enlightenment philosopher and one of the scholars who emphasized human morality and responsibility the most. And the biblical worldview emphasizes the responsibility with free will because it fully recognizes the personality of man created in the image of God. And human existence and life itself is a response to the cultural mandate or creation mandate, as we have seen to be fruitful and multiply and to rule over the earth. Therefore, I emphasize again that humans are essentially Homo respondens in the sense that they must be responsible for their responses. That makes human being very different from other animals or creatures. An alternative to the era of naturalistic ethics, what is right, because it has no base of ethics. So we need another alternative. But on the other hand, for instance, the biblical worldview with an absolute standards of ethics can present the Ten Commandments, for instance, as its basis. This standard is a divine command, non-human. So it becomes more meaningful through Jesus Christ, love for God and love for neighbors. That can be a good alternative to the naturalistic view of ethics. Thirdly, naturalism is overly optimistic about human reason and the development of science. And it almost puts science in the position of an absolute savior. But this is a real problem called scientism or technicism, absolutizing the power of science and the power of technique. However, as we know, during the World War I and II in the 20th century, this optimistic ideal was totally broken. And eventually, we will have to point out both the optimistic and pessimistic aspects of man. Humans can develop science, of course, technology with reason, of course. But at the same time, they are very selfish and egoistic. And sometimes collectivism will not stop in front of war. The collective egoism is almost sure and absolute. That's the problem. In the East, in the Oriental philosophy, I mentioned the theory of Mencius and Sun Tzu's the good nature principle and the evil nature principle of man. So they divide human beings into two aspects. But the biblical perspective provides a good balance because humans are both God's image in a good sense of the word and yet wholly, totally corrupted sinners on the other aspect. So we can seek a more realistic alternative when we have a balance between the two. Therefore, the biblical perspective of both aspects of human being can be the good alternative to the naive and optimistic view of naturalism. A naturalistic worldview attempted to find the answer in existentialism through nihilism. And therefore, we will talk about nihilism first, and then existentialism later. Furthermore, postmodernism emerged to overcome this weakness of existentialism. On the other hand, however, the biblical worldview has a view of redemption and consummation, which can also be another alternative to atheistic existentialism and nihilism and postmodernism. So this can overcome the contradiction of naturalism, which is the belief that developing science and technology would allow humans to control the world more properly, which would then lead to mankind being able to enjoy the complete freedom. However, the more science advances, the more human freedom was restricted. And this is the essential problem of naturalism, the dialectical tension between freedom and science, freedom and natural science specifically. This is because if technology is developed in a right direction to serve neighbors and relieve the suffering of the weak, it will be beneficial for everyone. But in reality, it has not been so. Now, let me move on the fourth alternative point. It is very hard to explain the essential differences between humans and animals with this naturalism because it focuses only on what is directly observable and scientifically verifiable. It is ignorant on anything other than the visible world because there is no understanding of transcendent mental or spiritual dimensions. And there is a famous story called intelligent design theory, scientifically explaining the same reality, but also providing a possibility of a being who designed the sophisticated universe. So this is a good alternative to naturalism as well. This alternative is humbling, admitting that humans cannot know everything by reason alone. And when we do this, a worldview of higher dimensions will open. Therefore, again, the biblical worldview presents a creation, a clear view of the origin of all things that naturalism cannot explain. So the biblical worldview can say that there is a clear and fundamental difference from humans to the other animals with the image of God and man as the Lord of all things. After all, humans are very different spiritual beings from animals. It is difficult to find the meaning of human life if we ignore the mental world, such as values and spiritual life. Human dignity, human rights, and human free will are virtually impossible if man is like a machine and merely a part of the universe. Therefore, humans cannot accept the conclusion that they are unfortunate beings of no value. because we cannot live a meaningful life with this perspective. Because humans are fundamentally beings who seek meaning. Well, these are the references, and this is the end of my lecture on naturalism. And we will see you next time for another course called nihilism. If you have any question, you can also contact. Here is the email address and the website. And thank you for your attention. We will see you next time.